Did you know? Neversoft, the company behind Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, originally developed games for a toy company. After departing a small video game development company owned by Malibu Comics called Malibu Interactive, Joel Jewett, Mick West, and Chris Ward founded Neversoft Entertainment. They first found work with Playmates Toys, developing a Sega Saturn game based on the television show Skeleton Warriors. As development continued, Neversoft grew, and by 1996, the staff consisted of over 20 people. Unfortunately, the days ahead were less than favorable. Neversoft worked for Crystal Dynamics on a game based on Ghost Rider, but it was cancelled due to financial problems. They then began to design their own game, an action-packed shooter called Big Guns. The project was bought by Sony Computer Entertainment, who then began to make changes. Big Guns was renamed to Exodus, and the design was changed from a mech shooter to an action-adventure game featuring a girl who morphed into a cat creature. Sony canceled the game in November of 1997, and Neversoft shrunk down to just 12 employees. In January 2008, Neversoft was nearly out of funds, but was saved by Activision. Activision was looking for someone to develop a game called Apocalypse and saw promise in the Big Guns game engine. Neversoft signed on to design Apocalypse, and Activision also requested Neversoft to develop a prototype of a skateboarding game. Development was mainly focused on creating Apocalypse, but the skateboarding prototypes that were made impressed Activision, and after development on Apocalypse had finished, the 15-man team began working on what would later be named Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. The first person to ride a board in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was none other than Bruce Willis. Neversoft started development using the same engine they made for Apocalypse, in which Bruce Willis played the main character. His character model was the first to ride around on a board during the early stages of the games. In fact, Bruce Willis was still on the board when they took the game's first demo to Tony Hawk to try and convince him to join the project. In a quote from co-founder Joel Jewett, he recalls showing Hawk the demo. The first demo, the one we showed to Tony Hawk to get him on board, had Bruce Willis on a skateboard. He was still holding a gun, I think. As the project moved forward, Bruce Willis's model was taken off the board, but lived on for a short while in the downtown level as a statue, which was completely removed by the time of release. Tony Hawk wasn't just a face and a name, though, and after signing his likeness over to Neversoft, he took on an active role in the game's development. Each time Neversoft finished a new build of the game, a copy was sent to Tony Hawk for review. If he saw anything that didn't appear to accurately reflect the skateboarding scene, he would report back to Neversoft. He also participated in motion capture for the game, a process that was mostly abandoned by the time that the second game was released, however would eventually be reincorporated in later Tony Hawk's installments. Customers first got their hands on Tony Hawk's Pro Skater in the form of a demo that appeared on multiple demo discs, including the PlayStation Underground's Jam-Pack Summer '99 disc, and a disc given out at Pizza Hut restaurants. The demo allowed players to control Tony Hawk and Bob Burnquist, and featured either the Chicago or warehouse level. The demo was available over 4 months before the full game actually came out, and provided Neversoft with valuable feedback on what changes needed to be made to the finished product. The demo discs also helped create excitement for the game, which contributed to its success upon release. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater first appeared on the PlayStation on August 31st, 1999. In some regions, it was released as Tony Hawk Skateboarding, as the word skater implies ice skating in some countries. It was then ported to the Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, and N-Gage, and an adaptation was released for the Game Boy Color. Not all of the content that was originally intended for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater made it into the game, and not all ports of the game are identical. An early beta version of the game reveals content that was changed or completely removed from the official release. Aesthetic differences between the beta and final release include a change to the splash screen and logo, different fonts on the End Run menu, and that the trick called Fast Plant was originally called Foot Plant. The bonus point items look different as well, appearing as glowing rings in the beta instead of the metallic point icons that appear in the final release. The game's beta also contains 2 levels that were removed completely. The first, a level called Downhill, was a long level without much to do. The objective was to pick up tapes, and although a lot of work appeared to have already been done on the level, it never made it into the final game. The second level, Freeway, was mostly empty. It consisted of part of a highway overpass and not much else. The player could hop off and skate around below the freeway, but it was clear that not much work had been completed on the level, and it was eventually abandoned. Users claiming to have obtained a hacked version of the beta also accessed an area called Test Level. This mysterious and eerie level was mostly devoid of color and had strange physics, allowing the player to ride completely upside down. There is little information available on this level aside from the claim that it was hacked from a direct rip of the beta. Another hacker claimed to be able to skate around the beta levels as a taxi, and even provided a handful of screenshots. Some levels that did make it into the final build of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater had to be scaled back. Both the San Francisco and downtown levels had hidden areas that had to be removed because of size constraints. The ports of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater weren't all identical. Due to the smaller amount of memory available on its cartridges, the Nintendo 64 version had fewer music tracks than the PlayStation version, and some of the songs were reworked and looped to save space. There were also a few changes put in place to accommodate the Nintendo 64's younger user base. Blood was removed, and the names of some of the gaps and transfers were made more appropriate, such as the Handy Gap being changed to the Spanky Gap, the Long Ass Grind being renamed to the Big Daddy Grind, and the Holy Shit becoming Holy Cow. A mysterious cheat code was also put into the Nintendo 64 port of the game. Once it was entered, it would present the player with a black and white photo of a girl. Many have speculated this to be Tony Hawk's then wife Erin Lee, although it doesn't appear to have ever been confirmed, and the code was simply referred to as Girl's Picture. The Dreamcast version of Pro Skater came out on June 29th of the year 2000, nearly a year after it appeared on the PlayStation and mere months before the sequel was released. Despite this, the port received widespread acclaim and was seen by many critics as the best version of the game. The port featured better graphics, more animations, and the Dreamcast VMU displayed score and ratings as the player accumulated points. That's all for today, but don't forget to subscribe to Did You Know Gaming and follow Did You Know Gaming on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you also check out didyouknowgaming.com, and if you like this video, check out our other videos as well. And if you're in the mood for more Tony Hawk, you can check out my video on Tony Hawk Ride.